Order at 7.
Sorry.
Calling special legislative meeting to order at 7:32 p.m. I would like to start this meeting with a moment of silence in response to the tragic events of last Monday. Please join me for that moment of silence.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can we
Denied.
please?
Thank you. Councilmember Lingua.
Sir,
You have a point of order.
water under the bridge, sir.
Thank you. Members of the council, there's an agenda before you. Are any amendments required to this agenda?
I have none.
Hearing none, seeing no hands raised, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Is there any discussion of the motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Mr. Mayor, did you want to do a survey of any stated conflicts for the agenda items?
Yes, that's a good idea. Are there any conflicts of interest among members of the council?
Hello, everyone.
Have
I have
none.
none.
This is Calon.
Good evening, Councilmember Kellon. Thank you for
Good
joining
evening,
us.
sir. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any public comments on the agenda? Thank you. I will do a roll call vote on the motion to approve the agenda. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Is Councilmember Mejia in attendance? I don't see her. Councilmember Kellon.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I do see Councilmember Mejia in the list here.
oh, Councilmember Mejia, do you wish to vote on the motion to approve the agenda? You're muted if you are speaking, Councilmember Mejia. Yes, she wrote yes in the chat, so the motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda are public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Hearing none, I'll move on to legislative action items. Excuse me. I had notice up. I didn't see any hands raised. Legislative action items. The first legislative action item is a motion to appoint a member of the Riverdale Park Ethics Commission, Tamika Richardson. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there any discussion of this motion? I see a hand is raised by Donata. Is this concerning this motion, Donata? Donata, you are muted. We cannot hear you.
He's struggling to get the mute off.
Donata, we have quite a bit of material to cover this evening. If you can't unmute, then Is this regarding this motion? Or is this regarding something else? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Sir, I think it might have been something that was going to come under public comments.
Okay, we cannot hear. So I'm going to move on with this motion, the handling of this motion. Is there any discussion of the motion to appoint Tamika Richardson to the Ethics Commission? Are there any public comments on the motion to appoint Tamika Richardson to the Ethics Commission? Hearing none.
Mr. Mayor, on the point for the council, I will just express my thanks and appreciation to Ms. Richardson for wanting to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua, for those words. Mr. Lustician.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe Ms. Barnes has an update on the process for this. With the council's indulgence, Director Barnes.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. With the Ethics Commission, we need to make the appointments via resolution. So we've drafted a resolution with Town Attorney Sussman. It's resolution 2023-24, and it simply does the same as this motion would do, which is appoint Ms. Richardson to the Ethics Commission.
Okay.
Ms. Barnes, has it been, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Lustician.
Ms. Barnes, has that been added to the meeting packet?
Yes, it has,
And can you make that available for viewing?
certainly.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's perfectly acceptable. Ms. Barnes, can you please scroll up to where the number of the resolution is shown?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to withdraw my original motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Appreciate that. That simplifies things.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-R-24, which is a resolution concerning the Ethics Commission's an appointment of a member for the purpose of appointing a member of the to the Riverdale Park Ethics Commission.
Seconded.
The motion has been made and seconded to adopt resolution 2023-R-24, appointing Tamika Richardson to the Ethics Commission. Can you please scroll down now, Director Barnes? So this is the full text of the resolution. Is there council discussion of the resolution? Are there public comments on this resolution? Saying no, no one speaking, no one raising their hand, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang. Have we lost Councilmember Inyang?
I'm here. So I did lose connection.
Do you wish to vote on resolution appointing Tamika Richardson?
Yes, I did. Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Mejia, Councilmember Mejia, we cannot hear you. I don't know if you are able to type in the chat again to cast your vote, or if we've lost you. Looks like we may have lost you. I will move on. Councilmember Kellogg.
Aye.
I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. Is Ms. Richardson in attendance this evening?
Yes.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
here.
I would like to administer the oath of office to Ms. Richardson, if you're ready.
I am. What do I need to do?
Okay. Director Barnes, can you please put the oath of office up? Thank you very much. Are you able to read the statement, Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, please raise your hand and repeat after me. I, Tamika Richardson,
I, Tamika Richardson,
do swear or affirm that I will diligently and honestly
do swear or affirm that I will diligently and honestly
administer the affairs of the Ethics Commission
administer the affairs of the Ethics Commission
for the town of Riverdale Park
for the town of Riverdale Park
in accordance with Chapter 32 of the Riverdale Park Town Code,
in accordance with Chapter 32 of the Riverdale Park Town Code,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland,
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of member of the Ethics Commission
execute the office of member of the Ethics Commission
for the town of Riverdale Park
for the town of Riverdale Park
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Thank you so much. You're sworn in. I
Thank you.
echo the thanks of Councilmember Lingua for stepping forward and agreeing to help us out in this important way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. We can now move on to the next item on the agenda, motion to approve the town's legislative priorities.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. We unfortunately have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening, which is requiring us to take on these priorities. I will be in attendance and speak about them. You can see the joint priorities. These are priorities that we share with other municipalities in the 22nd district. They came up in earlier meetings. And then we have our own personal
They finally
legislative
got it.
priorities.
Got her unmuted.
Which are shown at the bottom of the screen, including state enabling legislation to allow automated stop sign enforcement and some specific prohibitions added. If you are not speaking and can possibly mute, that would be good for the efficient operation of this meeting. Thank you. Specific prohibition added to the transportation article prohibiting motor vehicles from driving in, stopping and standing in dedicated bike lanes. We also have, so if we scroll down, Director Barnes, we also have some proposed bond initiatives. I will go ahead and state that we have not adjusted this document since the incident of last week, and there may be that we will over the weeks ahead continue our discussion with the 22nd delegation and change this. But this is what I would like to take to the meeting tomorrow night. And there will be an open discussion at that meeting. Are there any council comments on these priorities?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Inyang, go ahead.
One, just I appreciate your work as well as staff sort of putting together a lot of the projects on this list. I know that there's no such thing as a perfect list. That if we dig deep enough, there's always going to be something else that could be added. But I think that specifically some of the larger sort of capital opportunities that were sort of listed here that you see here, I think are great opportunities that touch on areas within the town that we might have started some real development or touched on, or in the instance of the sort of Purple Line neighborhood, very little investment. And so I just want to, be on the record and saying I definitely support these particular initiatives, knowing that we may not get all of them. We most likely won't get everything on our list, but making that our voice be heard to the entire 22nd district delegation, I think would be really important. So I appreciate your efforts as well as staff on putting this together.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Are there additional council discussion of the motion to approve this as our list?
Mr. Mayor, were you looking for additional language for tomorrow evening?
I would
Related to?
I would go ahead.
Specifically related to ways that we would like to see things, we would like actions going forward to avert such an unimaginable tragedy again.
Well, I believe that that several of these priorities, and as I said, these priorities were established weeks ago,
Right.
do address some of those issues. And then there are the shared priorities, which are further up, and many of those also address the recent tragic events. And so I believe that there's enough flexibility in there in both the shared priorities and our specific requests that we can address the legislative needs, or state legislative needs raised by the recent incidents.
So you're comfortable with the language that we came up with previously?
Yes.
Okay.
Any additional council questions or comments? Discussion? Are there any public comments? Mr. Barron, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just curious, are both of the legislative priorities already sponsored by our delegates, or are these things that the town's asking them to sponsor? I know Delegate Healy announced or mentioned the stop sign camera bill at the vigil on Saturday, but I wasn't sure if the other one had a sponsor already.
The other one does not have a sponsor. As you say, we are asking for that particular piece of legislation. It hasn't been discussed before, but we think that it's actually a pretty easy piece to get through.
Okay, and just one quick observation for the Purple Line Revitalization Connectivity Project. Can that just a note maybe for later, but can we make sure to add the trail connection to that neighborhood? There's a kind of a dirt trail right back there that, if it was paved, would give them a lot of the residents access to the greater trail network. So, but thank you for all the priorities. They look great.
Thank you. And we can definitely discuss that as being part of the project. I believe that MNC PPC already has plans to pave that and connect it up to the end of our street. So we need to verify that, but I will add that as a possible way that we can spend the funding if needed.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Proenza?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Quick question, and it's not on my screen anymore, but about the, I think it was about trucks parked in bike lanes. I wondered if there's any plan to add language about trucks blocking or parked on sidewalks, such as at the town center market. That's just an example, but because that occurs really every day, it might be good to add that that language if possible.
So we already have police powers that enable us to enforce that, and do not need to have state law altered. There is not any language in the transportation article that is specifically prohibits motor vehicles from driving and stopping and standing in dedicated bike lanes. And so we have no legal authority to ask them to leave if they are there, or to ticket them if they refuse to leave.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you so much. I won't take more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? I don't see any hands up, so I will move, unless there are additional council comments, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia sent me a note that she is unable to unmute. If she can type into the text, says aye. So Councilmember Mejia votes aye. And Councilmember Callan.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. Returning to the agenda. Are there any items of new business? And please recognize that I am planning on discussing the events recently and in depth, the tragedy from last week in the mayor's report, and expect to have a full conversation at that time. So this would only be for new items of legislative action to be done this evening. Are there any new items? Is there any unfinished business? May I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Foe, I believe, to adjourn. This is neither discussed nor debated, so I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia says aye in the chat, and Councilmember Callan.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned at 7:55 p.m. We now will move immediately into the work session. Call this to order at 7:55 p.m. This is a much more informal meeting. We are still bound by the rules of order, but we tend to be more free-flowing discussion in these meetings. So are there any amendments to the agenda? And are there any stated conflicts of interest for agenda items?
Can't speak now. Did it say you couldn't?
Donata, would you like to speak at this time?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
I can. This is about the
Okay.
agenda. This is about the agenda. We're discussing the agenda at this time. What is your comment?
Okay. Well, I just have a question, because you closed out the meeting so, to me, abruptly, and I was notified that we could put our comments and all, then they would be able to be brought up at the meeting. And I also talked to Councilman Lingua at the town hall right before the meeting, because I do have a comment in regards to the incident that took place. The unforeseeable.
Donata, you will be
Yes.
able to speak freely after I finish my mayor's report. Then you can comment at that time.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure. Happy to let that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any changes needed to the agenda? We are not voting on this any longer because it's just an informal meeting, but unless there are any changes, we'll move on to the presentations. Okay, no changes. Ms. Brandenburg, first presentation is defined benefit plan, third quarter review. As I think you know, we have quite a bit of resident interest, and so I'm hoping that we can have an expedited review so that we can continue on to the other topics of this meeting.
Understood. Thank you so much, Mayor. Our deepest condolences to you all in your community.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Director Barnes, for sharing the screen. We will make this a bit shorter than we typically would. We typically would walk through PNC's outlook on market and the economy. We're going to try to collapse that and really focus on your portfolio and talk a little bit about the market within the context of that portfolio. With me today, I do have my colleague, Hannah Schrift, who will be speaking as well. So we'll start on page 33 of the presentation. Okay, thank you so much. So this is a big picture snapshot of the pension plan. What I'd like to point out is that this is a well-diversified portfolio and your allocation is in line with your investment policy. Your total equity is sitting just below your policy target. And as well as your fixed income, where we are overweight is in the cash position. With yields moving higher, we have held an overweight to cash, which has been beneficial as we've seen some volatility, especially on the fixed income side when it comes to yield. The yield on your cash portfolio is about 5.25%. So we think it's a really attractive amount of income coming into the account without any risk. Some other items that we're focusing on, we are more domestically oriented. On the equity side and as well as the fixed income sides, we have more focused in the United States than international. And we have been focusing and moving the portfolio into higher quality equity and fixed income. So what that means is we've been focused on the large cap equity. So these larger companies, stronger balance sheets, able to handle some volatility as we are expecting a mild recession in 2024. In the fixed income side, that's investment grade core fixed income, and we have been adding to that allocation. So I will jump ahead to page 36. Two new investments to the portfolio is one is the second item down, which is iShares MSCI USA Quality Factor ETF. And then the other one is the second from the bottom, which is the international equivalent Quality Factor ETF. So again, we have been adding higher quality equity, really positioning the portfolio in a more defensive manner. So I'll flip ahead to page 39, which is the performance. So the relative performance in the portfolio has been very strong. On a year-to-date basis, the portfolio is up 3.89%, and this is as of the end of October, exceeding both of the portfolio benchmarks. When we look over a longer-term time horizon, over 3 years, 3.79%, that is an annualized number, so that is the amount that you have earned each year on average, and 5-year up over 5%. Again, both of those time periods, we are exceeding the benchmark. That exceeding the benchmark has been primarily driven by us having that overweight to cash and also us being shorter duration in your fixed income portfolio. So just to be respectful of everyone's time, I will pause there and see if there are any questions. Council members, are there any questions for Ms. Brandenburg?
Ms. Brandenburg, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you for coming out tonight and making this presentation. The cash position that you're holding, are you expecting to increase it, keep it the same, gradually reduce it, depending on factors that you're seeing in the market? And what would give you cause to do that, to shift the makeup of the portfolio balance?
That's a great question. I'd love to turn it over to my colleague Hannah to answer.
Great, thanks, Mr. Councilmember, for the question. It's a great one. Going forward, we would look to trim or reduce that cash position. As the Fed has raised rates over the last year, that's acted as a proxy for cash yields, allowing you to earn over that 5% that Michelle had mentioned. However, once the Fed announces a pause, those short-term yields are going to peak and reduce the attractiveness of the cash yields, and they are going to come down just as fast as they've gone up. So when we see that happen, we would expect to trim the cash position within the portfolio slightly to be more in line with your 4% target listed in your policy statement.
Okay, and this is, as you're doing this, you're factoring in inflation numbers. How?
So with inflation numbers coming down, again, this is all pointing to our projection of the Federal Reserve pausing. And our expectation that those numbers are now starting to work their way through the economy. We're seeing that in the most recent CPI. Once we are at that peak and we're looking to see interest rates move down, that's when it makes sense to move out longer duration on the fixed income side from cash into more of that core fixed income. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I'm gonna ask one last one. I'll turn it over to my other colleagues. Where do you see this portfolio structure? I'll let you choose either 3 years out or 5 years out.
3 years out or 5 years out. So I wouldn't expect the structure to change in the sense that investment policies are put in place for really long time horizons. We do make sure that it is in line with the goals and objectives of the pension plan, taking into consideration the contributions, the health of the plan, those sorts of elements. But I would not expect us to significantly change the structure of the allocation. This is right in line with where we see pretty much all of our municipal portfolios. There is a possibility of increasing equity in order to take on more risk for potentially better returns. But that needs to be done in concert with your actuary, making sure we're in line also with the town code, but certainly something that we have looked at historically and could look at potentially.
I guess structure is a bad term to use, and I apologize for that. What I was meaning is like essentially looking at reallocation of money towards different types of portfolios that you are holding.
So we continue to make changes within this portfolio on a regular basis. So we do tactical adjustments. So that tactical quality position, we would not expect that to be on long term, especially as like I said, as we're projecting an economic recession, 60% chance. So still, relatively, still could not happen. But let's say we're coming out of that bull market. It might not make sense to have that more defensive quality posturing at that point. And we would tailor that back, move into higher volatility or potentially higher risk assets like those mid-cap companies, those small cap companies. But we would all do this within your investment policy and within your town code.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to y'all for being here. I'm going to make this quick, and I'll take a response over email if that works for you. And I believe I raised this question last year as well, but just want to make sure that we are keeping an eye on our portfolio, particularly the international portion, and ensuring that we do not have investments in firms that use compulsive labor. So if we could just do a cursory check on that, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I do remember that from last year, and we can follow up with some more information.
Is there additional council discussion? And Ms. Brandenburg, were you going to continue after this point with your report?
So I wanted to keep it brief. So I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, as long as there are no further questions.
Okay. Are there any additional council questions? Mr. Town Manager, go ahead.
The only thing that I would ask Michelle to highlight is the market value. I think that provides a snapshot in the simplest terms for the mayor and council and the community and everyone to see where we've been and where we are now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that opportunity. If we will turn to page 39. Oh, sorry, 43. A little bit further. So I believe this is what you were referring to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think what's important to point out is how this pension has grown over time. And yes, that has to do with the portfolio allocation and the market, but it also has a lot to do with the contributions, both from the town and also from the employees of the town as well into this pension. So you can see those net contributions and withdrawals. So that's even with paying out benefit payments, you are putting more in than you're taking out, which is actually a very difficult challenge for a lot of municipalities when it comes to pension plans. I don't think it's any secret that they're changing demographics and significant challenges when it comes to pension plans. And that's especially important in years like 2022 when the market was not supportive. Just an update on the market value. The current market value is $11,141,504. So we have seen the market value go up during the month of November.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brandenburg.
Thank you.
Are there any public questions or comments on this presentation? Okay, thank you again for coming, and I will be reading this more carefully in the weeks ahead than I was able to in the last week. So may be in contact to ask some questions after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, and this may be informative to some of the questions that will come up under my report, is capital improvement project plan project update.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and members of the community and staff. I'm Ivy Lewis, Director of Public Projects and Services, Department of Public Works. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the Deputy Director of Public Projects and Services in the Department of Public Works, Michael, or Mike as he prefers to be called, Carter. We're delighted to have him, and he joins us with a wealth of experience in public works, finance, project management, and in many other areas of government services that will serve the community well. Mr. Town Manager, I hope I haven't upstaged you on this announcement, and thanks for the opportunity to introduce Mr. Carter. You can wave so everyone can see you. Director Shelton and I will present an update on the status of projects in the fiscal 2024 Capital Improvement Program and share a preliminary, albeit short list of projects already identified for fiscal year 2025. Next slide, please. There are 37 projects in the fiscal 2024 Capital Improvement Program, many of which supports the town's Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. This initiative seeks to create a safe environment for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and other users of micro mobility devices, with priority given to the most vulnerable members of our communities. Obviously, these projects have gained heightened importance following last week's tragedy. These projects are expected to be visible and impactful. That is to say, they help us to achieve our objectives for Walk, Bike, Drive, as well as contribute to the town's attractiveness as a location of choice in Prince George's County. These projects will also improve operations in terms of responsiveness to service calls and efficiencies in administrative and financial services across the board using upgraded technologies. The fiscal 2024 budget totals $7,956,590, with 30% of the budget funded through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. The projects are grouped in 8 categories in the CIP document and this presentation, which is an overview of the status of the project with greater detail provided for several high-profile projects. We'll end with, again, with the preliminary list of new projects for the next fiscal year, and we'll welcome mayor and council member proposed projects. Next slide, please. There are 2 types of CIP projects in the budget. 28 of them are infrastructure projects and 9 are acquisition projects. Next slide, please. I think can you back up one? Okay, I think you're missing a slide, but that's okay. The infrastructure projects generally progress through 4 phases. How long they stay in any one phase depends upon several factors, including the complexity of the project in terms of project site, boundary and ownership issues, and frankly, staff's ability to manage multiple scale projects at the same time. I certainly expect our capacity to expand with Mr. Carter's participation in capital projects. The phases are planning and scoping. There are 14 of the 28 infrastructure projects in this category. Project design, there are currently 8 projects in this phase, and there are 6 in bidding and construction. And to date, no project has been fully completed, with the exception of the first phase of the neighborhood security cameras project, expected to be completed before the end of fiscal year 2023. This project carried over into the new fiscal year due to some Verizon and other IT issues, but has been fully completed as of a month or 2 ago. Cameras have been fully installed in the first five locations, and additional locations are identified in the FY24 budget. Next slide. Actually, I'm sorry, you can go back to that. I think I have one more than you did. This slide shows the status of community projects, most of which are in the project design phase, and all but one is expected to be completed in calendar year 2024. Those with a red asterisk support the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. This list includes new projects in FY24, including Mount Rose Park on Madison near 47th, and a tree box rain garden program for flood mitigation. Some of these projects are multi-year or had delays related to property boundary and ownership, or design and development challenges. Are there any questions on this category of infrastructure projects? If none, I'll move on. Next slide, please.
Councilmember Smith has a question.
Okay.
Director Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Lewis. On the Town Center Trolley Trail and parking lot redesign, I know that was funding we received before I was originally elected, and I've been reelected since then. So it's been out there for a minute, and I know with these things, it is pretty much always not the fault of our great town staff when these things linger. So, but I have gotten questions from residents about it. So I'm wondering what's taken up that time that has extended the process. And yeah, that's it.
Actually, I have to admit it's a capacity, at least it has been a capacity issue. This is one project that I intend to assign to Mr. Carter and actually have it launched within the next several months. It is our biggest capital project, certainly within our Walk, Bike, Drive safety initiative. We want to get it right. And when we start, we want to make steady progress. So because of capacity issues, we haven't been able to get it off the ground. I fully expect it to be able to move forward at this point and be completed by the end of June 2025 in terms of the actual construction. And we'll go into a little more detail in terms of the project components later on in the presentation. It's one of the high profile projects.
Outstanding. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And thank you and welcome, Mr. Carter. You have picked a unique time to join our Public Works Department. We need you and we're glad you're here. So thank you.
And I think he's hearing about that assignment for the first time. I'm sure he's up for it. Okay. Any other questions on community projects?
So I would like to add one additional comment to that, which is that the first year that the funding came in, it was not usable, and it's for this project. It was actually aimed entirely at lighting the trolley trail, which we had already started construction of and funded. And so we had to go back a year later and ask that they reallocate the money towards this project, which we thought was more important than putting gold-plated lights along the trolley trail.
And I'll add, Mr. Mayor, that initially the funding went to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and not the town of Riverdale Park.
That's correct also. Thank you for that clarifying remark. Okay, please go on, Director Lewis.
Okay, building renovation, I'm happy to say substantial progress is being made on those projects, especially the municipal center renovations. If you've been on Queensberry lately, you see a lot of work has been done. The two multi-purpose bump outs at Town Hall are visible, at least have been framed out. You can anticipate seeing the expansion of the second floor in PD, where the roof will be elevated in order to create more usable space in that building. There's been quite a bit of interior work completed as well. And so I believe that project will conclude on schedule as noted in the chart in February 24. Most of, if not all of the renovation components of the project should be done. We've also made a lot of progress on building weatherization and stabilization, referring to the Boys and Girls Club. We're going to talk about that in a little more detail later on. The Public Works building renovations will be getting underway shortly with the signing of the contract for architectural services expected this week. That project is under $20,000 and will be signed by the town manager. This project will include a new fire alarm system in the building, a women's locker room and restroom combination, and additional upgrades to building entrances. The Queensberry parking lot is also one of the high profile projects that will be discussed later in the presentation. On technology upgrades, many of these projects are in the planning and scoping stage and are expected to move into the design phase before the end of the calendar year. The new neighborhood security cameras project is planned for the 54th place. Tot Lot and Kennedy Paper Street off of 54th Avenue. That's the public safety acquisitions. Any questions on those projects? Next slide, please. On streetlight acquisitions, the Trolley Trail Lighting Project involving the installation of town-owned pedestrian lights is in the construction phase, I'm happy to report, with completion required in June 2024 as a condition of funding. Significant progress has been made on streets and sidewalks through our annual road improvement program. Curb ramps also included in this work. An additional curb ramp installation is planned through October 2024. The redesign of the Natoli Lafayette intersection, stormwater improvements, and county community development block grant funded sidewalk projects are expected to move into the design phase in the next 30 to 60 days. Any questions on these projects? Next slide, please.
Councilmember Smith has a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the Natalie Place Lafayette Avenue redesign, that target completion date, June 25th. Is that like that's when we'll have a design and a plan, or is that by June 25 we'll have gone through all that and had the construction done if it necessitates that, et cetera?
Yes, that's the expectation, that the project is actually constructed by June 2025. We're going to talk a little bit about that project a little later on as a high profile.
Always one step ahead of me, Ms. Lewis. Thank you.
Ms. Lewis, Director Lewis, you're muted. You need to unmute.
That was an accidental mute. The stages of acquisition projects include the vendor selection, which involves product research and comparative pricing, purchases, which depending upon the contract price might require mayor and council authorization to proceed, and purchases that have been delivered. There are still post-pandemic supply chain issues, especially for vehicles and streetlights. Acquisition projects include the purchase of traffic control signs, streetlights, communication and safety equipment, and office and street furnishings. Progress is being made on most of these projects, except, as I mentioned, police vehicle acquisitions. The police department is not able to project when vehicles will be available for purchase. Some of these purchases are reoccurring, such as streetlights and signs as projects move forward, and or as spaces available in DPW for on-site storage. Any questions about the acquisition project?
There's a question from Andrew F. On this.
Apologies. My question is actually from 3 slides ago. I think it took me this long to figure out how to raise my hand. You said something about a parking lot, and my spouse overheard and asked where that parking lot is.
It's actually on Queensberry and Taylor, the 2 single-family homes. There are actually 2 single-family homes on the property at the moment. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the as a high-profile project.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We're actually at that point, if there are no questions on acquisitions. None. Next slide, please. We've selected just a small number of high-profile projects for more detailed review. These projects includes one of the town's largest walk, bike, drive projects, a new public infrastructure project, several new public facility projects, and an upgraded town facility project. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, this project, the Town Center Trail and Parking Lot and the Natalie Place Lafayette Avenue redesign, is the largest walk, bike, drive safety project. We are combining these projects as both will impact circulation in the Town Center area and are an opportunity to create a more safer environment for the multi modes of transportation that frequent the area. A key objective is to create safe passageways for pedestrians, bicyclists, and micro-mobility users and vehicles within the town center, and eliminate the confusing Natalie Lafayette crisscross road configuration and improve safety for all users, again, throughout this community. The work includes soliciting a proposal from all 3 town on-call engineers and selecting the best proposal in terms of scope of work, public outreach and engagement, and costs. Establishing guiding principles for the project that include key issues to address throughout the life of the project, identification of key stakeholders, sort of what about value and expectations in that regard, identifying the scope and strategy for public outreach and engagement and other issues that are pertinent to a successful project. Also involves the preparation of alternative design options. We will anticipate up to 3, selecting a preferred design with community and council input, and then engineering, permitting, and constructing the preferred design. The project has a budget of $1,175,000, which is funded through state bonds and ARPA funds. And the project is expected to be completed by the end of calendar 2025. Next project, flood mitigation rain gardens. This is a new project with the objectives to absorb stormwater runoff. At least some of the research shows that rain gardens allow up to more than 30% more stormwater absorption to prevent flooding and filter pollutants before they reach local waterways. In this phase of the project, staff has received a proposal from the Neighborhood Design Center to develop criteria for evaluating potential sites and the expected impact at those sites, a native plant palette for town rain gardens, and program guidelines for resident requests and staff recommendations for rain garden locations. The current budget is $81,000, which will likely only cover the work by the Neighborhood Design Center and maybe one rain garden and maintenance costs for that new infrastructure. Staff is currently seeking out grant fund opportunities to fund a phase 2 of the program. And phase 1 is expected to be completed in June 2024 at the end of the current fiscal year. Any questions? Next slide, building demolition and parking lot development. This is the location on Queensberry. The project involves the demolition of 2 single-family structures at the end of Queensberry at Taylor to make way for a municipal center parking lot for residents seeking town services, to ease parking congestion at the elementary school, and to reduce traffic overall on this section of Queensberry Road. The staff received proposals last week for the demolition and will seek council's authorization to execute a contract with the selected contractor, I believe at next week's meeting. Engineering and permitting, I'm happy to report, is near completion to construct between 32 and 47 parking spaces on permeable pavement with EV charging stations with an aspiration to provide solar power to the charging stations if affordable. There will also be perimeter landscaping and lighting, and staff will develop an operations and maintenance plan for the site. The project budget is $636,765 for demolition, engineering, and construction. And the project is expected to be completed at the end of calendar year 2024. Next slide, please.
Director Lewis, Andrew F. Raised his hand again.
Okay.
Yeah, so those properties look abandoned. Is this like an eminent domain situation, or does the town own them, or?
The town acquired them from the respective owners about 3 years ago. These
Understood.
were sales, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
And they've been vacant for that period of time. And we have worked with Community Forklifts to salvage reusable components of both properties. And we'll have allowed them to do a final walkthrough before they're demolished, hopefully within the next several months.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Adam and Emily Plummer Park. This is another project that has been on the books for a while, largely as we try to figure out the stormwater management strategy for the site. Staff is working with a landscape architect at Pannoni, one of the town's on-call engineering firms, to complete a stormwater plan, which currently consists of an inlet on the depressed section of the west end of the property and a drain pipe to deliver stormwater to the county's existing inlet on Lafayette at Tuckerman. Specifications are also being developed for installing the lazy metal design that was created through a series of charrette meetings a couple of years ago. A county permit will likely be required for this work. The project received both funding and state funding and county tree conservation funds for a total budget of $326,606. A portion of the state grant is a loan, the other portion a grant, and the target completion date is fall of 2024. The Boys and Girls Club, we're really excited about the progress that we've made. This site was the subject of a recent community walk and talk. The project's objectives were to stabilize and weatherize this structure, make it handicap accessible, and upgrade restrooms, lighting, and other interior features of the property. There's a new roof, gutters, new windows, lighting and flooring, a new HVAC system, a handicap accessible restroom, an upgraded second restroom, and a handicap accessible front entryway is planned between now and March 2024. The project budget is $44,000 of unrestricted CIP funds. Any questions? Then at this time, I'll turn the mic over to Director Shelton for the last two high-profile projects and to close out the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Director Lewis. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I'm here to speak about two projects that are a little similar in scope. The first being Mount Rose. The Mount Rose project is a revitalization of town-owned property along the southern edge of the town and its border with Edmonston. The project consists of developing a linear park connecting our two municipalities along the border, along Madison Street there to, I believe, Lafayette Avenue on the other side. Town staff have already coordinated with town engineers and conducted a survey, and we have begun contacting and speaking with the neighboring property owners about the lot boundaries and the future of that project. The total project budget is $255,000 derived from CIP unrestricted funds. Similarly, the 47th Avenue to Taylor Road Linear Park is another linear park, this time a little bit longer, but this linear park is also on town-owned property. And again, town staff have received a survey of this property and have begun notifying and speaking with property owners about the project, about neighboring property owners about the project. The next step for both of these projects is to address any encroachment issues along the property and develop a design, and then finally construct the improvements. The total project budget for this project is $107,000 split between ARPA and CIP unrestricted. And this has an October 2024 target completion date. And so for the fiscal year 2025 proposed projects, staff will be presenting a primary list of these at the February 5th legislative meeting. And we are interested in hearing a little bit more about what the mayor and council would wish to see. And that really wraps up our presentation tonight. If there are any questions about any of the projects or any comments, Director Lewis and I will do our best to answer those questions.
Are there council questions or comments at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
Mr. Sheldon, that slide you just had up about the 47th Street Park there, linear park, yeah, 47th Avenue to Taylor Road. You have on there Jefferson Street, right? And that's currently a paper road. Now you're saying this park's going to go essentially from where you have stated there, just beyond, just right around the area of Chief Chris Kyle Court on over and through down Jefferson Street, this paper road. Can you tell us what is the plan for that paper road? Is it going to be a real road, or are we just looking at a very nice path?
So that is going to be the route of our linear park.
Okay, so it's just gonna exist on that paper road.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, So it's gonna be a nice park with lots of nice shrubbery and things like that.
Yes, a nice paved walking trail, perhaps signs describing local animal life and plant life and things like that. Absolutely.
Are we throwing lighting back in there, or are we looking to keep it au naturel?
We have not made it that far in the design yet, but I would assume
Okay.
so that we would, I believe. Yeah.
I don't mean to put ideas in your head. So I mean, whatever you guys come up with is what you come up with. So, anyway, thank you.
Are there additional council questions or comments on this presentation? Are there any public questions or comments on this presentation? I believe the first hand up was Andrew F. again.
So it's not actually relevant to this presentation, but I think it's relevant to these presenters. And it's just a curiosity that I have. At DuPont Circle along Harrison Avenue between DuPont Circle and Route 1, when you walk around the neighborhood, you know, for your evening constitutional, there's all this undeveloped land. If you're going from DuPont Circle to Route 1, it seems like there's nothing on the left side. Is that town property, or is that undeveloped private property, or do we know, or should I just ask another time?
Ideally, you'd ask it another time, but I can tell you that it is, for the most part, privately owned.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick answer for that. Steve Hartig is next. Mr. Hartig?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my comment was in regards to the municipal parking lot project. And
You're a little bit quiet. If you can get closer to your microphone.
Sure. My comment is in regard to the municipal parking lot project and the associated demolition of 2 single-family structures. I would say I understand the limited parking that's available at the school. I've observed the double and the triple parking that goes on in that parking lot. And with that having been said, demolishing 2 single-family homes in the middle of our town to make way for a parking lot that will sit unoccupied most of the time strikes me as just poor land use. It's some of the most valuable land in our town, and frankly, could be used in better ways, I feel. And that is the general nature of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartig. There was a minority of the council that shared your opinion, but the council decided to go ahead with this project at this time. This parking lot will also be serving the new municipal center, which is not slated to have enough parking as anticipated. And of course, it can be redeveloped at a future time as funding and decision-making goes ahead. So, but thank you for your comments. Ms. Proenza, well, okay, I thought that Councilmember Smith wished to speak, but Ms. Proenza, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. And thank you, Director Lewis and Mr. Shelton, for your presentations. Since the building demolition and parking lot is a done deal, I wanted to just comment that that's so wonderful that you reached out to Community Forklift to salvage those items and recycle them so that they won't land in a landfill. But the thing I wanted to note just briefly is about the Mount Rose project. My comment is that it's wonderful, it's great. Because I live near there and I observe the really dangerous driving of heavy equipment vehicles that speed and run through stop signs in that area, I have a lot of concern for pedestrian safety once that opens up. And I know pedestrian safety is on everybody's mind, but just as it pertains to Mount Rose Park, that's going to be something to just all of us to keep our eyes on and contribute to the safety of that project for pedestrians. Thank you.
Mr. Shelton, do you want to talk about the sidewalk project plan for that area?
Certainly. So I know that we briefly touched on the CDBG project that Director Lewis mentioned was going to begin design process fairly soon, within the next 30 to 60 days. That CDBG funded sidewalk project will run along 47th Avenue and 48th Avenue between Longfellow and I want to say, Director Lewis, do you happen to remember which road that runs to?
Actually, Nicholson on 47th and 48th, actually.
Okay, yes. So on Nicholson between those, so to assist with some of the pedestrian safety concerns, we'll be fortunately installing new sidewalk in that area along 47th Avenue, directly adjacent to this Mount Rose Park project. But in addition, when you were speaking, I was thinking that we would also include conversations with our police department to work with them on vehicular safety as well.
Thank you so much.
Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll keep this short. I just wanted to acknowledge Director Lewis and Shelton, but also Barnes and Mr. Jones and the whole staff team, because we all have many duties. And I think the CIP plan is robust. And for a small town where we have a lot on our plate and things are moving forward. So I want to thank them for their good work.
I absolutely agree, Mr. Town Manager. Appreciate that, and agree completely. I have one final comment that I would like to make, which is on the Natoli Place project. If you could back up to that. So this intersection has been identified for many years as being a severe safety issue, as somewhere that there's a lot of hazard. It's unclear to naive drivers how to get through there. It's unclear to pedestrians, even experienced pedestrians, how to exactly get through this intersection. And there's been a discussion of this particular project for, I believe, 25 years. And the town council very recently, I believe in perhaps in this fiscal year, perhaps last fiscal year, identified this as a project to spend the ARPA money and state bond funds, some of the state bond funds on, in order to create a safer environment in the town center. And I just wanted to point out exactly how long this one has been under discussion, so that everyone could know we're finally getting to it after a quarter of a century. So thank you for the ability to comment on that. Are there additional comments on this presentation at this time? Andrew F., please go ahead. You're muted if you're speaking.
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Mayor, what you just said about Natalie, I wonder, and I'm glad that discussions are underway. Is there any shape currently, ideas, thoughts about, I mean, that's like, as you know, right next to me. So I'm very interested.
Sure. So the general idea that's been discussed so far is to close off the little section of Lafayette between Maple Munch Park and the train center parking lot, and reroute traffic and on the other direction. So basically the intersection that currently has that little piece coming in, people turning left, everything happening very close to the railroad tracks. That will become a much more manageable intersection for both pedestrians and for the automobiles.
So for example, if I were coming into town from the north off of Kenilworth, I would wind up in front of Town Center Market and then turn right instead of turning right.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And there's still a lot of design to be done on that project. Mr. Barron, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if this is more appropriate here or with the later conversation with the crash, but I do think it's probably more appropriate here. And I want to thank the town and the staff for all the projects and all the work you've been doing. I definitely think for a small town, we definitely punch above our weight for getting things done. And I appreciate all the projects in the works. One thing that I'm wondering is a lot of the projects are targeted at traffic calming, and I definitely think we need to do more of that. But I imagine there's been some discussion. I'm just curious if these capital projects are a way of looking at volume control as well. So I mean, essentially, Rhode Island Avenue is Baltimore Avenue, US 1 alternative route through town. Queensbury is the alternative route that people use instead of getting on East West Highway. Taylor Road is the alternative people use instead of Kenilworth. And a lot of the issues we're seeing are just the sheer volume of people coming through town, and they're not coming to town, they're just driving through town. And so like the Natoli Place project, I think will be great, but it would probably even be better if we could cap off the end of Rittenhouse. So that's not a cut through to East West Highway. And maybe looking at Rhode Island Avenue, doing something where it's not a straight shot through, people taking that instead of Baltimore Avenue to get over to East West Highway. So I'm just curious if maybe in the future we can look at some of these capital improvement projects with ways of not necessarily kind of preventing traffic flow through town, but just making it so that it's not a more desirable route than taking the routes that people should be using to travel through these areas rather than to town. And I think looking around at our neighbors, a lot of them would probably complain about the same issues, but I was just thinking about this when I was dropping somebody off at work this morning where, you know, Hydesville's got roads that are blocked off from Queens Chapel. You know, we don't have to go as far as University Park of just shutting off the town. I don't know that I can, I try to avoid it because I'm not sure I can make it out, but I do know that a lot of the other communities in this area have done things like that. And I think we have a couple of intersections where if we can make some more larger changes, we might be able to help reduce the volume, which I think will go a long way to addressing some of the safety concerns that keep coming up as well.
Thank you for your comment, Dan. It's certainly been a goal of mine to reduce the cut through traffic volume to the extent we can. And I can talk for a long time about that. So, but let me just cut it off and say that I agree with that. And one of the happiest week or twos in my life was when they accidentally poured one of the islands at the intersection of Kenilworth and East West Highway in the wrong place and cut East West Highway down to one lane, and took the contractor in the state, as I said, about a week or two to remove it. And during that time, traffic was a lot lower, and that was really nice. And it's unfortunate that we have to put up with the traffic that we do now. Okay, so are there any other public or council questions or comments on this presentation? Okay, thank you, Director Lewis, Director Chelton, for the presentation, for town staff, for the preparation that went into it. And let's move on the agenda. And if I'm not mistaken, and I am not, it's time for the mayor's report. I think that everyone is ready to talk about our most recent tragedy. I'm going to take 30 seconds to mention that there is a increase being seen now, mostly to the north and south of us, but that means we're going to be caught in it, of both COVID, RSV, and flu, the triple demic. And there's a lot of infection opportunities over the Thanksgiving weekend, and there are more ahead. Please be careful. And I'll mention that there's a new study on long COVID that says that multiple vaccinations help reduce your chances of getting it by a lot. So those who were vaccinated with 3 vaccines saw a 75%, roughly 75% reduction in long COVID. Okay, on to last week's tragedy. And if I might make a request of Director Lewis, I would actually appreciate it if screen sharing, excuse me, not Lewis, Director Barnes, if screen sharing could stop so that people can see my face. Thank you. I'm just going to start out by saying that that this event, what's going on, is still very raw. It's still very painful for, I think, all of us. I know it is for the families involved, and I think the community as a whole. It's also quite difficult to think about, quite difficult to deal with. It's painful. I think we should start out a discussion of this with the facts. We don't know a lot of the facts right now. The county police department has an investigation team. They've collected a lot of information about the crash, about the, I hesitate to call it an accident, because that implies that it's just an oops, and it's not. It's something that we need to investigate as a tragedy and as a crash, and not as just an accident. But the county team is investigating. They may still be collecting information. If there are any witnesses who have not spoken to that team, please reach out. I think dialing 311 and contacting, telling them you have some information to share, that's a good idea. And I don't want to pollute any sources of information by speculating about what might or might not have happened. What we do know is that a vehicle that weighed thousands of pounds and had the equivalent energy of hundreds of horses of power in its engine ran over and killed 2 young children who were in, or at least very close to a crosswalk trying to get to school. And despite the best efforts of first responders, including our own police officers, both children died. I think everyone knows their names: Sky Souza, 5 years old, and Shalom Mba, 10 years old, young children. A lot of people watched it happen. A lot of people saw it happen, including other children, other students at the school. I know from conversations with a member of the school board last week that there is no county crossing guard on duty at that intersection at that time. Our police department, which often will cover if there's an absence in the crossing guards, did not receive a request from the county to cover that absence. And that is supposed to happen. There's an established process that did not occur. The last thing I'll say about the facts is that that report that the county police department investigation team is generating is months away. It's at least a few months before we have a report analyzing the accident fully and have all of the facts in our hands. So I'll stop and mention here something that I certainly know from personal experience, that there are many stages of grief and loss. There's shock and denial, pain, guilt, anger, bargaining, depression, and at the end, and at times, there's acceptance. And I know personally that this is not a linear process through all of these, that you bounce from one to the other, you backtrack through them, and even after acceptance, you can still find yourself back at any of them at any time in the future. So we're all working through these right now. And I have been in many of them since learning about the accident, since initially hearing about that there was an accident and not knowing the outcome. So we're working through these. So as a town, the first thing we have to do is support those who are most impacted. And we have tried to do that to the full extent of our powers. Last Monday, shortly after the accident, shortly after learning that the children had died, I wrote letters of condolence and support. I hand-delivered them to the families on Monday evening. I spoke to Shalom's father. I was unable to meet with Sky's family directly. They had not yet gotten back from the hospital when I stopped by to see them, but I did see some more distant family members. I had heard that day from over a dozen nearby mayors, County Council member Eric Olson, County Executive's office, all members of our 22nd District Legislative Team, and Governor Wes Moore, who called me on his phone shortly after 1 o'clock to express his condolences and offer his support. Many members of the community also reached out to me to provide assistance, offer assistance, provide information, and express their grief. I contacted the county executive's office by email on Wednesday to formally request that all significant crossings have guards or police officers at them immediately and continuing. I attended and spoke at the candlelight vigil that occurred on Saturday evening, attended by around 200 people. Town staff and council members Smith, Faux, Lingua, and Mejia were in attendance there. Entire 22nd delegation was in attendance. The mayors of Mount Rainier, Colmar Manor, College Park, school board representatives, and some members of the Greenbelt City Council also in attendance at that event. I think the families felt the strong support of the community at that event, but it doesn't lessen their loss. Also publicized at that event was a GoFundMe, which as of this evening had raised more than $43,000 to provide support to these families. So we have a responsibility to support them. We also, as a town, have a duty to prevent similar tragedies and to understand how this tragedy happened. In my day job, the job that pays my living expenses, I have a lot of safety responsibilities. And as part of that, about 10 years ago, I was trained in a methodology called root cause analysis, which seeks to really dig down into tragic incidents like this, tragic events, and figure out what was going on and how to prevent it in the future. Those of you who remember the space shuttle explosion, they did a very thorough root cause analysis and eventually found both the I'll say political or technical goals of the program and the physical cause of failure and how all those contributed to that tragic event. I hope that the police report will do that, but I fear that it will not, because it's a very involved procedure, and I'm not sure that they are going to be concerned with more than whether to charge the driver with a crime or not. I'm not sure that they will dig down that hard. We may need to do that ourselves. After a tragic event like this, because root cause analysis takes time and a lot of time, we have to have what are called immediate corrective actions to prevent something from happening immediately. In general, when you have an incident at a factory or on a construction site, the immediate corrective action is to stop the work. And we can't stop entirely people driving. We can't entirely stop people walking to school. And so I don't feel that that's an option at that time. It's on the table, but it's not, it's an extreme option that we would have to think about at least for a little while. My request for solid and complete staffing of the crosswalks was such a immediate corrective action. Over the weekend, because I had not gotten confirmation that all crosswalks would be staffed, I reached out through the town manager and asked that the police department be ready to staff those crosswalks this morning and to just go and see if anybody was there and to staff it if it needed it. One officer was needed to do that this morning, and in the afternoon, all 5 intersections that I had requested were staffed by the county. So that's all I know at this time. I would like to express a lot of thanks on behalf of the town, on behalf of myself, to our police department, both the town and the county police department for responding quickly, to whichever fire department, I don't know if it was the Riverdale Volunteer Fire Department or another one that responded and transported the victims to try to save them, to the town staff who provided a lot of support, a lot of information gathering and dissemination over the last week. And in town staff were also provided, both public works and police department staff were provided for the candlelight vigil on Saturday night. And the town also provided supplies, material supplies, including the candles for the vigil. And last but not least, those who offered and provided the support to the families themselves. It's really important that so many people in the community reached out to help them. That's the end of my report. I know there's a lot of people with questions and comments. I would ask that while you make them, that you please try to stay focused on this particular tragedy, this particular incident, and not on related topics to the extent that it makes sense. And with that, I will open the floor for questions and comments. Mr. Hartig.
Hello again. It's a horrendous tragedy, obviously. I have my, thoughts on, what might have happened and what, could be changed in the future to be different, but without getting into specifics, from a perspective of the built environment and the intersection, I think really it's not just a story of one intersection. When we look to the future, Riverdale Road, I live on Riverdale Road across from the Tanglewood Apartments, and there are times of day where I can't back out of my driveway because too many people are walking, and I think that's a great thing. But Riverdale Road is a deceptively dangerous road. People travel at far faster than they should. Pedestrians have a lot of difficulty crossing, and I just feel that it's not just a story of the intersection, but the road in general, because of the high pedestrian traffic and especially the high numbers of children that cross the street, not only at crosswalks but in between them, and the high pedestrian count volumes. So I hope that we, as we look to what we can do differently in the future, that we don't just focus on the intersection, that we consider that there's a larger area that's traversed by pedestrians and children as they go to school. Thank you.
Thank you. And we absolutely do. And one of the projects that was in one of the lines that Director Lewis shared in the street improvements was a speed table but that was aimed initially, it's aimed now, I believe, at the intersection of Queensbury and Taylor, the intersection north. And that's just because we've observed a lot of people gunning it through that intersection to get to East-West Highway when the light is green. And so that one seemed more important. But I have advocated since before being elected to the council on a variety of traffic calming measures, and absolutely agree that Riverdale Road needs attention. Are there additional public comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, you see, the very day the incident happened, I made a comment. You see, the problem we have, some of these areas, many drivers, they don't respect the road signs. Many of them are speeding. Some of them don't have driver's license. So, if you are a good driver, you see a school cross, you see you see a zebra crossing where people have to cross. If you are going with the limited speed, it can be able to brake to give way to the people to pass. But some of these drivers, they speed more than the speed limits in the area. And they do not respect the road signs. Many of them, when you see a lot of accidents is happening in these areas and other areas, this is the problem. They don't have patience for others. Like when you are crossing the street, some drivers to say, oh, there's somebody crossing, or let me wait for this person to pass. They don't do it. So I would like you and talk to our police officers to take some measures against these drivers. Those who are disobeying the laws, traffic rules.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, my take.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kellon. I think you know, I think we've discussed this before, that 2 years ago, I asked for the state to provide us with more legal authority to install passive but fining cameras to prevent running stop signs and other violations. And the legislature, it was introduced last year, and the legislature denied it. And you saw it was on our legislative priorities for this year. So I expect to have hope that we will have that passed, and hope that we can deploy it widely within town. So I'll say that, and then I will say, again, based on my safety experience at work, that just as there's a sort of hierarchy of best practices in other areas, that there's a hierarchy of best practices in safety. And the lowest level, the least effective, is personal protective equipment. And there's none that I can think of for pedestrians. Bicycles have helmets. If you go to a construction site, then you have hard hats, you have face shields and eyeglasses, you have steel-toed shoes, that sort of stuff. So that's personal protective equipment, least effective at improving safety outcomes. Second level is administrative. So you have rules, you have regulations, you have people that are making sure that they are followed. And that's what you're asking for. And I think that it's an important part of a safety program and improving road safety and improving pedestrian friendliness, which is really what this is about. We want to have a pedestrian friendly community. I've been working for that essentially since I moved into town. We've made a lot of progress. We have a lot of more projects on the books. We still have to, it takes time. It just takes time and resources to do that. Anyway, the next improved level of safety is engineering. And that is where you essentially make it difficult or impossible to do unsafe things. And in a driving environment, that could be speed humps. The design of the speed humps matters. I think I've told other members of the council after visiting our sister city, Apala, where they have speed humps, that I would estimate are 8 inches tall, and anybody who goes over one of those in a vehicle at over a few miles an hour no longer has a transmission in their car. So extreme speed humps are a way of slowing people down and making sure they're not going too fast. I don't think we can legally install those on the roads in Maryland, like I saw in Apala, but we can install other engineering solutions, engineering protections that will improve safety. And the last and not least is to eliminate. Elimination, that's the highest level. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that elimination is very extreme, it's very difficult. It would mean that we didn't have vehicular traffic through that area, maybe just part of the day, but it's an option. We could close that road during part of the day. And that would be the highest level that would prevent roads, during the day. That would eliminate the problem. If vehicles could not go through there, then that would eliminate it. But all of these are tied together, are a way of improving pedestrian safety. But thank you for bringing up the administrative is definitely an important part of it. So thank you. I believe the next person is Mr. Behrens. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. I think like everybody else in the community, just absolutely heartbroken by this tragedy. And I appreciate everything that town and town staff have been doing, and then some of the immediate goals around kind of a root cause analysis, and I appreciate your outreach to get a crossing guard. I was really just frustrated to find out. Having my experience traveling by the school, I've usually seen many crossing guards, so I was really just frustrated to learn that after the crossing guard retired, there wasn't a replacement this year. I was curious if there's any opportunities for, to your point about preventing something similar in the future, just additional work on reviewing Riverdale Elementary and maybe any other schools in our community more extensively for safety, pedestrian safety. I know the Maryland legislature passed a bill in 2021 for new schools that require a pedestrian safety plan. I don't think Riverdale Elementary or any of the schools in our area would qualify under that. I don't think they're necessarily being renovated with state funds and some of the other thresholds, but something like that seems like it would be really helpful in addition to the root cause analysis, just identifying how kids are getting to school and making sure that the ways that they're traveling are safe. And while I certainly don't think, to your point, elimination is pretty extreme, but I was to the point where I just feel like maybe we do need to start just shutting down roads around school during school hours to make sure kids have space to safely walk 20 feet to the school building.
Thank you, and very, very good idea to pull in the pedestrian safety analysis at this time. And if staff can take a note of that and send it to me, I will reach out to those in the state who offered their help, because that's something that they can do. Ms. Proenza, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks to everybody in town. It's great to gather tonight, if only virtually, to discuss this and just to have a sense of community. I guess I have a couple of questions or comments. Like, I really appreciate your organized way of thinking through, presenting the facts and then presenting like the harm reduction strategies. And how can we citizens be more how can we engage with you in that? Sometimes, especially ever since the pandemic and even tonight's meeting and all meetings still being online, is there more chance to get together to work on these issues as a community? Because we all see the dangerous driving and the rampant speeding and the rampant stop sign running, but there's just a terrible feeling of powerlessness about it just as an average citizen. Like, you can literally do nothing, and even if you react, it makes it worse, and so it's very frustrating. But just in terms of the concrete, you mentioned a GoFundMe and possibly other support for the families. God knows they're going to need ongoing support. And how can that be made public? I'm glad to attend tonight and learn about that, but I don't always know where to find information to be an active community member. And I would really appreciate, maybe that's something for the newsletter or other communication. But I'm not finding that like, I didn't know about the vigil. I would have attended. I'm not sure where that's made known or how I can do a better job myself of plugging into those resources.
So a lot of our outreach of information like that occurs on social media, particularly we're focused on Facebook. We also, at least for the moment, have accounts on Twitter. The town manager or Director Barnes can chime in on others. The The GoFundMe, Councilmember Smith pasted a link to it in the chat, so you can click through on that. And Mr. Barron, Dan Barron, posted a link to the where to sign up for the Town Talk email list if you would like to join in there. There's a lot of information distributed over that as well in the days.
Thank you. I would appreciate knowing about the Town Talk, and just for feedback, I just can't be beholden to the social media companies to find out critical information in the town. That's personal opinion, but I can't go there.
Okay. Mr. Hurdle, Alex, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Alex Hurdle. I live on Madison Street, where cars regularly speed up and down my very narrow street. It's dangerous. I moved into Riverdale Park in 2005, and one of the reasons I did that was I wanted a pedestrian-friendly, walkable community. And I feel very blessed that I can walk to restaurants, to Town Center Market, to the farmers market. But I will tell you, and I want to respectfully disagree with you, Mayor. I don't think we've made a lot of progress in terms of pedestrian safety in this town. I've lived here 18 years, and things have gotten dramatically worse in terms of being a walker, a biker, or anybody that's outside of a car. Okay. I just want to review a few things that I see on a regular basis, and I'll start with Taylor Road. Now, I don't need to tell anybody that people speed up and down Taylor Road. They go through the stop signs. Today, I was handing out flyers on Taylor Road to let people know about this meeting, and I saw a motorcycle go probably about 30 miles an hour straight through a stop sign. No police, no cameras, nothing was going on. This happens on a regular basis. 2 times in the past year, I've been almost hit by cars on Taylor Road. I walk my dog up and down there pretty regularly at night. And it's absolutely negligence on the town's part for ignoring this. We've had a speed camera.
Mr. Hurdle, Hurdle, please. I have been advocating for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, for stop sign cameras so that every person who goes through a stop sign like that walks away with a ticket. And it was killed in the legislature last year. I do not want to be accused of ignoring this. How many police officers do we have? You know that number. You want to have one that's permanently parked at your intersections?
Can you address
to do that?
Can you address the one speed camera that has been in the same location for over 5 years, Mayor?
The state law specifies that we have to pass a resolution stating where they are. It's a difficult thing to do. We have to justify it based on location to the school. It's there, and they're not easy to move. We have a bunch of locations that we adopted by resolution, and it is legally difficult to move them. I spent 8 hours of my vacation last year testifying in Annapolis to keep that law from being effectively repealed. And I think that my testimony and my work was an important part of that. It had sailed through the Senate with votes, and by testifying in House sessions about the importance of pedestrian safety, about the importance of school safety, then I was able, and others working on the same thing, were able to keep that law in place.
Well, I appreciate the work that you've done, and it sounds like we have a lot more work working with our delegation to change those laws.
We do, and I will. The other thing I will add is that I agree things have gotten worse over the last 20 years, and I think that it's gotten more bad, worse in other places. Because if you look at the incidents, there's actually a story in the Washington Post recently about the district deploying even more speed and stop sign cameras because of the horrible numbers of pedestrian incidents and accidents in that area. And so, yeah, it's not as safe as it was 20 years ago, but I think that it has gotten not as bad as it has gotten elsewhere.
Well, maybe we can have an offline conversation about curb chokers, about rumble strips, anything on Taylor Road that would slow people down. And as mentioned earlier in the conversation, a lot of people do cut through, using that as a cut through from Kenilworth or from alternate one. A lot of these people do not live in the community. They're just going from north to south or south to north and using our roads as cut throughs. So again, I don't know what can be done. I don't claim to have the answers on that, but maybe there needs to be much more enforcement by police, and maybe there needs to be more courtesy pullovers and just letting people know, watch your speed, please be safe. There's children in the area. The other thing I want to talk about, Town Center Market, and again, I appreciate the fact that we're finally changing that configuration to make it safer, but I would ask, particularly given the fact that we're looking at having development right around the railroad tracks, that no permits be allowed either by the town or by the county until those improvements are done. We already have the situation on the railroad track area where it's very precarious. If we have more traffic because of new residents moving in, and we don't have those things in place to make the area safer, I think we're doing ourselves a grave disfavor to ourselves. I want to talk a little bit about the police. I had a long conversation with one of the senior members of the police force this spring. They were very courteous, and I learned a bit of information about their job and oftentimes how their hands are tied in doing what they need to do. And it's my understanding that it's oftentimes not the town that's tying their hands. It's, as you mentioned, state bills and state legislation that doesn't allow them to do certain things. But I had a number of conversations with town residents this afternoon while handing out flyers. And it's my understanding that in the past, the town had some issues with racial profile and in pulling people over. And the conversation that I kept hearing over and over again, it doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or yellow or whatever. If you're speeding and you need to be pulled over. And so I would ask, and I want to underscore that our police really need to be doing more pullovers, even if it's a courtesy pullover, instead of thinking about racial profile or thinking about, who's behind the wheel. Should I be pulling them over? I would tell you, in the 18 years that I've lived here, I've been pulled over 3 times by the town of Edmonston. And although they were for just, a back light that was out or a brake light that wasn't working, at least they're pulling people over and they're telling people something's wrong with your car. I know that when I go through Edmonston, I have to be very careful. When I go through Riverdale Park, I don't know what to think because I've never been pulled over, and I travel through here a lot. So again, I want to applaud our police for doing the job that they can. It's not an easy job, but I will say that if you're not pulling people over, if you're not monitoring Taylor Road and other areas, people are just going to do as they wish. So I'll leave it at that for the police. And finally, the infrastructure. I do want to say, in large part, the degree of safety is contingent on our infrastructure. And I want to just say a few things, a couple examples. I do not see anywhere in town where there is a fire hydrant and there's the red paint that's painted on the curb. Now, by town law, I think we all know that you're not supposed to park in front of a fire hydrant. But I find right around my streets, people doing it on a regular basis.
Mr. Hurdle, I'm going to remind you that I asked, you can say what you want, but I'm going to remind you that I asked to stick to this tragedy.
It's part of safety, sir. I'm saying if somebody,
but if the fire hydrants had red curbs, would it have changed anything? Really?
If there was a crossing guard at the school, would that have changed anything?
Yeah, I think so.
I think red curbs would change things too. So if somebody's house is burning down and somebody's parked in front of a fire hydrant, and the firefighters are trying to get to it and they lose 2 minutes from putting the hose in, maybe somebody's house burns down, maybe somebody's killed, maybe somebody's not killed. So I want to emphasize that the little things in town oftentimes make up big safety items. So again, I saw a project on Oglethorpe and Taylor that was completed just 2 months ago. It was a I believe it was with a stormwater issue. That project now has still not been fixed. It was completed construction project. It was blocked off for about 8-10 months, completed, and it still has a large pool of water in that area. With winter coming up and that area icing up, that can be a safety hazard for residents, for pedestrians, for vehicles. So I just want to underscore that if we're not taking care of our infrastructure, we're not taking care of our residents. Finally, I just want to say that a few years ago, the town manager gave me a t-shirt that said, Riverdale Park, come grow with us. I'd like to modify that and say, Riverdale Park, come grow with us in safety. And again, I'd like to underscore the fact that we have to do the little things to make sure that we're a safe community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hurdle. Brandy C., you're next.
Hi. A lot of things I wanted to say, other people had already said. And for me, this is very personal, this subject. I myself was hit in that crosswalk at the same exact spot a few weeks ago, oddly enough, by a van coming in the same direction, making the same turn. I'm just curious to know, do you guys track these instances in the town prior to this, or is it just, does it just go through the police department and that's it?
Mr. Town Manager, can you answer that?
Yes, and we have our Deputy Chief Turner with us this evening. So I would say that all reported accidents are tracked, and we highlight various reports to the mayor and council and the community every 2 weeks through the status and information report. And then we also give significant incident notifications to the mayor and council when significant incidents occur. And then we also, throughout the year, periodically highlight our Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative, and we highlight any pedestrian-involved accidents. So yes, those things are regularly reported, ma'am.
I will add to that, excuse me, that Dan Barrand, who is in the meeting tonight, generated a very interesting map showing where accidents had occurred over the last few years. And I'm still trying to digest that. He sent that to me and the rest of the council perhaps a few months ago. And so that sort of information is collected and tracked and is available.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will reach out separately. Again, I know this is, like I said, it's emotional for me, so I just want to keep it short. Also, one of the children was my direct across the street neighbor, so it just hits home very hard. But is there going to be any type of like neighborhood pedestrian committee, like a safety committee, anything that we can do to help or chime in going forward?
Many years ago, there was a committee that was called the Traffic Study Committee, and it dissolved probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was because people were not interested. It is certainly within the powers of the council to create such a committee again. And we have committees. The Public Safety Committee could get involved with that as well as a facilitator of such a citizen committee.
Mr. Mayor, if I may comment.
Go ahead.
Brandy C., if you would please, could you give me a call tomorrow? I'd like to talk to you and follow up about the accident that you were involved in at that intersection. And I'll put my cell phone in the chat.
Absolutely. I would be more than happy to. Yes, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So I see there have been a couple of comments in the chat. Amy Pate said, I sent in a comment via email. I wonder if anyone can comment regarding efforts related to public education related to reckless distracted driving, especially if any have been undertaken in concert with neighborhood jurisdictions. And I'll say that the Walk, Bike, Drive answer to that question, Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative that was started approximately 5 years ago has 3 aspects to it. There is education, there is enforcement, and there is infrastructure. And so, so very definitely that is on our board. Your email that I saw just before the meeting, I believe that you were suggesting, and your question, it mirrors that we coordinate with nearby jurisdictions, and we have not done that, but that is a interesting idea, and we will be tracking it moving forward. Ms. Proenza, go ahead.
Yes, just quickly, I appreciate hearing about that. And on the topic of educating and informing, look, I understand the businesses in Riverdale Park are not connected to the tragedy, but as Mr. Barron said earlier, so many of the ongoing issues fold into the tragedy. And so my request is, as a person living across from the industrial businesses at 47th and Nicholson and Lafayette, could those companies be informed of the tragedy and be reminded to follow safety and speed limits? Because not only, like everybody, do they speed and run through stop signs, but also they do so often in large trucks that are transporting heavy equipment. So the risks are exponentially higher. And look, I'm pro-business. It's not about I'm against the businesses, but I have just observed so much death-defying, dangerous activity that hasn't changed in the nearly 5 years that I've been here. So I just think, keep it friendly, but just reach out to them and inform them that this has happened and say, hey, please play your part in maintaining the safety in town and being a safe member of what is largely a residential community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Proenza, and we can definitely talk to them, no question. Brandy C., do you have another comment, or is your hand still up from previously? I'm going to assume, since you're quiet, that it's still up.
Sorry, it's still up. I'm going to take it. I'm going to figure out how to get it off.
Okay. There's a question about translation. We have not traditionally had translation of these meetings. It is very definitely on our to-do list this year, this fiscal year. The town crier will be coming out in both Spanish and English, which has not been true in the past. And we hope to expand that in the future to other languages as needed and other areas. I'm scrolling back up through some of the comments. Does anyone have Steve? Mr. Hardig, go ahead.
A brief comment echoing what Dan Barron had said regarding whether it is appropriate to consider the elimination level of hierarchies of control. The bridge on Riverdale Road is going to be closed for replacement, and I think it gives us a unique opportunity to study the elimination of some of that traffic. And I would hope that we take that opportunity to see if some level of elimination there would make sense to continue in the future.
Very good point. Thank you for that. I think there are lots of things that we could do. We can verify where the traffic is coming from and going to, and we can look at a lot of options there. Any additional questions or comments, council or members of the public? Helen? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Hi, I was trying to turn it on. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. So I live in Taylor. I know that you guys say that it has to be related to the incident, but with the construction of the Purple Line, we have been seeing a lot of through traffic through Taylor, directed to Riverdale and coming from east and west, you know, to Kennyworth Avenue. So what is it that we are doing to better that? Because a lot of what's happening, it's also like people that are not from the neighborhood cutting through. And I know that you guys mentioned that every incident you guys are taking notes, but what are they doing once they taking the notes after we get all these reports? The accident of this person who just reported it, the accident of the children. What is it that it makes the change, and who's the one in charge to make these changes? Is what I'm more concerned, because we're getting a lot of ideas, but at the end of the day, I'm thinking about the parents of these kids. What would they want at this point? You know what I mean? There's nothing that is going to ease their pain. So what are we doing after these reports are done to make these changes is where I just feel stuck. Because like, to give you an example, on Taylor, we've been seeing a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. They're coming from DC, cutting through, speeding real close. In front of my house, I have reported 3 different accidents of hit and run. One of them, I actually went to court to help the neighbor, you know, identify the person, the drunk driver that it was passing through. But what are these reports being, you know, like, where do they go?
So the infrastructure projects that were discussed earlier, the Walk Bike Drive initiative, all of the data feeds into information that is fed to myself and the town council, and that leads us to prioritize various projects throughout town. We also are, of course, subject to both budgetary constraints and I'm not sure exactly what the word that Director Lewis used. I believe it was capacity. That you know, even if we had, you know, $20 million, if someone handed us a check for $20 million, then it would take us a long time to do a lot of those projects unless we hired additional staff, because we don't have enough staff on to push through a huge number of projects simultaneously. So we take the information, we take the what we see about where accidents are happening and what's going on, and we try to prioritize projects to address those at those locations. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I have another one. In relationship to the speed bumps that you guys, you know, that we can request to put nearby the school or in Taylor or anywhere, is there a way that, because I discussed this with my neighbors, is there a way that we can buy the ones that they sell on Amazon for 170 and place them without your authority? Or, you know what I mean? Like, because at this point, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for another kid to go through what these kids went through. You know what I mean?
So our Public Works Department would pick up a personal speed bump fairly quickly. So depends on how much money you want to spend on putting them down. I would not recommend that. There are all sorts of options that we have as a town council that have not been exercised in the past. One of the first things I tried to do, how long ago was this? 15 years ago, when I was first elected, was to have speed bumps installed on Lafayette Avenue north of East West Highway. And the council at that time voted against it. They said that it was a major throughfare and that it was inappropriate to put speed humps there, and that it would increase response time for the fire department getting to various places. And so it was voted down. I asked about something that seemed like an interesting idea to me. There's various types of speed humps, and the ones that you run into for those who still go, are there still any shopping malls that people go to? But the ones you run into in shopping mall parking lots really do slow you down to about 5 miles an hour. And I asked the question, can we install speed humps like those at stop signs on top of the stop line? And that would require people to at least slow down to 5 miles an hour while going through the intersection. And I was told by a previous public works director that that was not allowed, not possible. And I don't know the answer to that. That maybe it is. Maybe we can see about changing the state law if it's prohibited by state law. So there's lots of options out there, and we need to exercise them. We need to use them.
Thank you.
I hope I'm going to get the pronunciation of your last name correct. Please let me know if not, Mr. Kaushik.
You nailed it, Mr. Mayor. So I'm Karthik Kaushik. I am faculty at the National Study Center for Trauma and EMS, which is associated with the Shock Trauma Center. And I also have a PhD in transportation engineering. And I've lived in this area for over 10 years now. And, you know, so I'm just saying that I have a lot of experience with traffic and safety and all of those areas. And I 100% agree with you, Mayor, that the solutions that you suggested are the ones that are the most feasible. What we are seeing, like in the data throughout the state, is also more concerning because the sizes of vehicles are increasing, and that's causing a lot more problems when it comes to pedestrian and bicyclist safety, well, safety of any vulnerable road user. I have bugged council member Ying Yang enough on joining some or the other, safety related initiatives in the town to basically help shed light using the data and the knowledge that I have in these areas. And, what I want to say is that at the end of all the analysis that I have done, it always comes down to infrastructure, right? It's the infrastructure that needs to be improved. We need to have speed breakers. We need to be able to slow people down. People are not going to slow down on their own. We need to put the roads on a diet. We need to reduce their sizes. And those are the only tangible ways in which we can move the needle towards more safety. The alternative to that is to actually implement a police state where you basically stop everybody for the most minor offense.
As you say, the engineering solutions are preferred to the administrative solutions. I agree with you. On that. And as I also said, we have options that we need to exercise, and we need to explore opening up other options. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really hope that we can get the speed cameras passed through the legislature this time around.
I think
keeping all of our fingers crossed.
Thank you. Are there additional public or council comments? Just note, I thought about this a few days ago. Melissa Anderson in the chat says that raised crosswalks are an option at the stop signs. And thank you, Ms. Anderson. I appreciate that. As I said, I thought about that a few days ago, but forgot to mention it this evening. Okay. We have other business this evening, and so I think that we need to move on the agenda. And it is my strongest and most sincere hope that we continue to see turnout. We continue to receive at times harsh and strong comments from people about what we should be doing. I want to hear the suggestions, and particularly at this time, if anyone has any immediate corrective actions, the things that we can do immediately that we'll do this, that while we wait for the analysis to continue, then please do reach out to me or to your council representative to share those. And with that, we can move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things. I do want to extend on behalf of the entire staff team our heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims in the fatal accident. And I think it can't be highlighted enough to also those who witnessed the accident, as well as to our staff who responded. I do think that mental wellness is important. Ms. Bolin commented in the online comments, making sure that services are offered to staff, and they are. But we also posted online the Community Crisis Services Inc. information. It's an organization that the town has interacted with in the past and supported their efforts. So their services are available to individuals in the community. And I would encourage anyone who needs to speak with someone to reach out to that organization or other organizations that offer the mental wellness services. More on logistical things. We have the Ethics Commission meeting on the 29th at 7:30. That's a virtual meeting. On Saturday, December 2nd, so this coming Saturday from 4 till 7, we have the holiday season kickoff event in the town center. We do have the current toy drive going on. Unwrapped new toys can be dropped off at the event on Saturday, or you can drop them off at the police department. Town staff are working with Crescent Cities to schedule the seniors holiday luncheon. We do not have a date yet for that, but we are working to coordinate that. You heard this evening about the building demolition and receiving the responses, and we'll be coming to the council next week with a recommendation on that. There's a upcoming community meeting that County Council Member Olson is hosting on December 4th at 6 p.m. And that's to discuss the Wells Run projects that the county is undertaking. Representatives from DPI, DOE, DPW&T, and the Army Corps of Engineers will be there to respond to questions. We do have the long-awaited cable franchise agreement. We received that about a week or so ago. And we have Sue Ellen Ferguson, who's a municipal attorney elsewhere, who worked on that for representing all the municipalities involved in this franchise agreement. She will be presenting to the mayor and council on December 18th. We also had some good news. The Capital Bike Share station will be installed in the next several weeks. That's the one across from Tanglewood Drive on Riverdale Road. I also want to point out that we had it on our draft agenda for tonight. It didn't happen. We're trying to get the SHA project manager in, so perhaps that'll be next week, or if not, hopefully sometime in December. Have the project manager for the Riverdale Road Bridge project in to share an update on their efforts, as well as to receive any feedback from the council on engineering. The last thing I want to address, I think the conversation was generally positive tonight, and it's good, as the mayor commented, to have people come out and share their thoughts. I will point out that we have the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative, and that started from a resident reaching out in the fall of 2018 and having conversations with the town, and it grew into this this endeavor. And we have on the agenda for next week to present to the council a draft plan document on our walk, bike, drive safety initiative. It's an evolving safety initiative. And so stay tuned for more details on that. We also host community walks. That's a good time to bring forth issues. And we have those throughout the spring and summer months into the early fall. And then we have our community conversations, which are virtual meetings. We have one that's already scheduled for January 20th. That's a Saturday morning at 9:30. It's a moderated discussion, and the topic on January 20th is our Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. So we have these different vehicles available, and I hope folks stay involved. It's good to hear not just concerns, but possible solutions. The last thing I want to address is that I appreciate the concerns. I want everyone to know that the police department, I believe that they're doing a good job. They have a tremendous task. Right now, we have a number of vacancies on the department, as all departments do. But even when fully staffed, we have 25 police officers, including our command staff. And with about 24 miles of roads, I don't have the number of stop signs off the top of my head, but the number of controlled intersections, I'll say it that way, as well as the number of calls, which I encourage everyone to read the status and information report, which is a report every 2 weeks. You'll see the number of calls the police respond to and the number of calls for service they handle. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any questions for the town manager? Mr. Hardig, go ahead.
Is there some place where there's a written list of the manners in which we can engage with the Walk, Bike, Drive initiative?
There's a variety of things. We can condense that to a list, certainly. Director Barnes, if we can do that and put that out, we'll put it in the next status and information report. And then we'll actually put it in the next town crier as well. But I believe that that'll be a little while because we had is it a December, January one that just went out?
Yes, so there won't be another one until February.
Yes, but we'll also post those sorts of things on our social media platforms, Mr. Hardig. And as the mayor said, perhaps there will be other avenues that the mayor and council may form for the involvement of our residents.
And just point of clarity, where would one find the status update you referred to?
Ms. Barnes.
Certainly, it's on our website. There's a section right in the news section that has the status and information reports. They come out every 2 weeks. We also do a little notice on our social media platforms to indicate that the report is ready to go and ready to be reviewed. I'm happy to help if we just want to connect after the meeting. I can show you where those things are.
I've got it. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Any additional questions for town manager? Okay, let's move on to council committee and ward reports. That's where we are, right? So start with Councilmember Smith, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize, first of all, for my raspiness. I've learned over the last holiday week that an angry wisdom tooth can lead to the same symptoms as a cold. So obviously looking forward to getting that address at the dental group in Ward 1, a longtime Ward 1 business. Also, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and our wonderful staff. We're lucky to have all of you serving our community. And staff, we know, no matter whether you go to sleep in this town or not, this is your community too. So we definitely appreciate everything you've done over the last week and everything you do always. I echo all of the comments about being there to support the families involved in the tragedy last week. I also, as I mentioned to you, Mr. Mayor, the other night, I served in the Army with people who aren't here anymore because they felt like they were too far removed from a tragedy to have the need to talk to somebody about it. So please, all of you on the staff, take care of yourselves. I'm always here. There, of course, the resources that the town manager mentions, and anyone experiencing a crisis can call 988 for the National Crisis Line or 211 for the Maryland Helpline. I've been thinking over this past week a lot about choices we make as a council, choices we make as a community, and the people that don't have choices. Folks who cut through a residential area make that choice during their commute during the day. Folks who drive recklessly make a choice to endanger our community, whether they live here or not. Our county agencies made a choice to leave Riverdale Elementary without a crossing guard, knowing how dangerous that area is for pedestrians. And everybody on this council, we've made a choice to run for office, and our constituents chose us to solve the problems of this community. And it's a hard thing to acknowledge, but I think it's important to acknowledge that we as a community, we've made the choice to, in the past, to tacitly accept the unsafe conditions that led to last week's tragedy. And we all know what those conditions are. We see them every day, and this council hears it constantly and appropriate from our constituents. We've known what the problems are. And we show up to this forum and various other meetings to try to fix things and come up with good ideas. And I know I've been sort of racking my brain over what more we could have done as a body to prevent something like this from happening. Some folks in our community don't have a choice, though. Our children don't have a choice. They have an entitlement and an obligation to attend school. And they learn through the curriculum there, but also learn how to function in a community and be good citizens. And I hope we could be good role models for that in this body. Kids who live within a certain radius of Riverdale Elementary, they don't have a choice to ride a bus, and many don't have a choice to be driven to school when their family members have no choice but to leave early for work. And Shalom Imba and Sky Sosa certainly had no choice about when and where their lives would tragically end. So every day that we don't make a change, we're making the same choice to allow these conditions to remain. And tonight I want us to think about how we can make a different choice, because what we have is unacceptable. I don't think any of us can say with certainty that this tragedy won't be repeated in the near future. I don't think we can, not unless we take bold action. We can make the choice to become the safest community for pedestrians in the DMV and in the state of Maryland. I would love a year or 18 months or whatever in the future from now to read an article in Washingtonian or the Washington Post about how in the aftermath of this horrible tragedy, we made that choice to become that safest place for pedestrians. And that's within the power of this council. It only depends on what our body chooses to prioritize. And I'm thankful to hear from all of my colleagues tonight that that is what we're looking forward to doing. I think personally, a good first step would be to close Riverdale Road to through traffic during drop-off hours at the school. And I believe we need to think creatively and act boldly when it comes to things like rerouting traffic patterns and even closing some streets to vehicle traffic altogether. Lots of municipalities across the country are taking that step. I saw a piece in the Post today about how the district is looking to close, at least during some days or some parts of the day, thoroughfares to vehicles and reserve them for pedestrians. I think that's something we should look into. I know a lot of this stuff is going to take time, but I hope we have the urgency to act quickly where we can and proceed deliberately where we should. I'm certainly not any kind of engineer, let alone a traffic engineer, and I don't know exactly what all the solutions are, but I know we have the choice to find out and expedite those solutions. We have a choice to do more than say we're working on it or wait for the county or the state to fix it. So we all in this body, we've asked residents of Riverdale Park to choose us to address these kind of problems. And I'm thankful to hear that, you know, in the aftermath of all that, I hope we continue to choose to be worthy of the titles we hold, and make those decisions, study these issues, and again, act quickly and boldly to make this a safer community, a place where our children don't have to be afraid to walk to school, and where nothing like this could happen again. And again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and staff, for everything you've all done this past week and always. And I look forward to working with my colleagues, the community, and anyone who's interested in making the necessary, what I think would be considered radical changes to our approach to traffic and pedestrian safety over the coming weeks, months, years, however long it takes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2.
Good evening, everybody. The last week and a half has been complete and utter chaos. I vacillate between depression, utter sadness, to those brief passing moments where I get to be a father or I get to complain about traffic. And when I return home, I'm reminded of the seriousness of where we are right now. But again, that being said, the times where I have felt best have been with all of you. Here we are tonight in a meeting with 40 attendees, and that's a number that we haven't eclipsed in years. In community, we can find dialogue, support. In community, we can talk about solutions. This idea that is emerging here of a safety committee, I'm getting texts from my constituents, my engineers that want to participate in something like that. And these are dialogues that will provide value to what it is that we do in moving forward. And I do want to reiterate the words of Councilmember Smith. We need to act in the best interests of our constituents and the safety of our children. This has just been a crushing experience for so many in the community. And I just want the families of Sky and Shalom to know that we are here to support them. And we are here to support all of the students at Riverdale Elementary and staff. And I want to make sure that as a community, we move forward with them in our hearts and in our eyes. I want to make sure that the students at Riverdale Elementary see our presence and let our actions define to let them know how we care about them. I have been in communication with Principal Riley. I am probably going to bring something up under new business next week where we can utilize some of our charitable contributions to ensure that we can show our love to the school and its students and teachers for the remainder of the school year, because this is a trauma that is unforgettable. And the only way that we can assist is by being present and accounted for. I am not an engineer. I love when Councilmember Smith said that. I don't know the exact solutions that we can put in place to solve these problems in our communities, but I promise I will be a representative for all of you to have those dialogues. The mayor, myself, and Councilman Lingua are going to our legislative priorities meeting, and we will use whatever it is that we can to solicit change in this community in the best possible way. That is what I can do in this instance, and that is what I will do. I will ask questions, I will dialogue, I will text, I will communicate, I will learn, and hopefully in this community, we will never see anything like this again, but more importantly, even spreading outside to ensure that schools across our county are safe for pedestrians. We have an imperative in front of us, and it's to protect our children. And that's what I'm going to spend my time in this position doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I've just been all over the place. The one thing that I want to think about in this time period too is the dedication that our staff has shown, the dedication that our mayor has shown. He was there with those families on Monday night. He has been available to any of us in any of this time period. And Alan, you lead by example, and I am so proud to work in a community that is led by you. John Lestitian, Jessica Barnes, behind the scenes, every single minute you have been readily available to this community, and you are absolutely amongst the best in this community. I thank you so much for your undying support. The first responders that were there on that day and any witnesses to that horrific event, you have our support. Please do not hesitate to take it. I'm grateful to be amongst so many really, really, really fantastic people. And I'm so glad that I have you to follow. So thank you very much. You are more appreciated than you will ever know. We love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Appreciate your kind words. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As a first grader, grew up in New Jersey. One of our classmates, Cheryl Reich, was struck and killed walking home one day after school. Wasn't near the school, but it was along the route, that she would walk from the elementary school to where they lived, also, or near where their family were. They ran the local pharmacy in the town I grew up in, and her death and her passing was a shock to a lot of us. It's like what it is for these families and the students and the teachers, for these children. They were loved. There was much about them that was lovely, it was just, it was pure. It was very worthy of praise from anyone. And just blooming of and being able to see the excellence that was going to come in their lives. And then because of an accident like this, it's no more. There was a lot of grief. There's a lot of all of us being first graders trying to process this all. And it's something that I know my friends have stayed with us through the years. As a community, I think as what's been said before, we move forward on this, we study how we can move forward on this, and I hope that we as a community are able to lead. So we were able to lead to not only institute changes here in town, but also to encourage other municipalities with schools within their jurisdiction to press upon the county officials, press upon county school board as well, and the public school system, press upon state delegation who has said that they want to be able to help, to make sure that this doesn't happen anywhere else, let alone here. And if there's anything that we can do, it's to be able to lead and to see this change, not just here, but throughout the county, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Previous time where a child was struck in town was early 70s, approximately around 1974, 75, not far from where this accident happened. Down towards near, I'm not sure which side of the Riverdale Road Bridge, but in that area. And from that, residents got together and they formed committees to try and address the situation. And out of all those committees, eventually led to, in a later evolution, the Traffic Study Committee, which at one point I served on that committee with Jim Reed, Mary Donaldson, Jerry Kiernan, and a number of other residents, Debbie Acton as well. And we would look at a number of things in town and come up with suggestions for the Public Safety Committee at the time to present to the council, and then for the council to act upon. One such thing that was one of the final things that was addressed by the Traffic Study Committee was dealing with where parents could park so that they could walk their kids up to the school along that section of Taylor Road down towards Oglethorpe and around there. As the mayor had stated, as the members membership, the committee really just devolved really due to people just getting older, and then the committee just coming down to just being a few members, from 5 to 4 to 3, and then it came down to 2. Efforts to bring on new members just didn't bear anything, because folks just weren't able to be able to make time to be able to come and meet on a regular basis. I think something like something akin to the Traffic Study Commission in a new form, in a new way, is a good idea. And I hope by way of the Public Safety Committee that they're able to establish that, reach out to residents, even some of the folks here on this who are tonight and attending, to become involved. It's something that I would encourage. It was a good committee and was able to get things done. So I hope folks keep that in mind. And with that, I'll conclude my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Inyang, Ward 4.
Good evening. I'll be brief. I think I share similar thoughts that have been expressed in the council about the incident that happened. And I think there's a part of me that it feels a little awkward even talking about solutions when, you know, families are thinking about funeral arrangements and trying to grieve a lost child. But I understand the anger, the energy, the need to do something that the community has, and so we entertain these conversations because we must. But my thoughts are with the community, the family, those who are experiencing this, from a personal standpoint that's unlike anything else. And just I think as multiple council members have mentioned, like if you please use the resources that are available, and not try to sort of shepherd this by yourself. You know, Councilmember Lima, I appreciate you giving the history lesson in terms of just like the safety committee and sort of the various iterations. I do think that there is a collective wisdom within the community that people are doing this for their day jobs. The people have expertise in this. I'm not an engineer, as you mentioned multiple times, and luckily we have those 3 R's. And so how can we find ways to not just bring folks together who are interested and passionate in the moment, in this at the moment, but also creating a structure, a charter that has clear defined goals so that folks are not just, showing up and not feeling like they're giving input or having impact, but actually sort of feeding into a larger apparatus, right? That actually is sort of focused, and we're making sure that these suggestions are landing in the right forums to the right audiences. And so I would be 100% in support of such a committee or commission or whatever we think is the most necessary. Just because we did in the past and it didn't work for a period of time doesn't mean that it won't work now. And just because we did it a certain way in the past doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about opportunities to do something different as well. So, let's would love to, get feedback and what are other teams and cities and towns doing, what structures make the most sense, and let's sort of explore that. And then just lastly, you mentioned briefly on sort of the capital improvement, the legislative priorities that are happening. I'm out of town at the moment, and so I won't be able to attend the session, but I trust that the town staff and the council member and the mayor who would be attending will sort of shepherd our message through. But, I think of, there are a few things, there are certain levers that we can pull that we can sort of utilize as sort of elected officials. And I think everyone talked about infrastructure as like a key part of that, which I agree is effective. And I think it's important that, we always think about not just how do we focus investment on what just happened, but trying to make sure that we are being proactive and thinking about our entire infrastructure and are there things or areas or places of our community that have not been invested in, and that we are that danger lies in wait. And so looking through the comments, a lot of people mentioned about lighting, the importance of it, how proper lighting in an area can sort of really make a difference, from the trolley trail to a couple of different areas. And we know that there are opportunities for more. And for the Purple Line neighborhood revitalization project, there is substantial opportunities for lighting, sidewalks, crosswalks, stop signs, everything that we talked about throughout this meeting. If you haven't had a chance to go through Patterson, Quintana, that entire sort of neighborhood that's been cut off by the Purple Line and by the park and sort of East West Highway and Kenilworth Avenue. I don't know how many residents are from that community on these calls, but when I have talked to them, they mention these issues. And so, let's continue to be bold in our ask and audacious in our beliefs, and with the hope that we'll settle on something that at least moves the ball forward, knowing that we won't necessarily be perfect in any one pass, but we'll continue to make progress. And so with that, I'll give the rest of my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Councilmember Mejia dropped off the meeting earlier. She sent me a text that a family member was having a medical emergency and she was driving them to the emergency room. So she will not be presenting a report. And last but not least, Councilmember Calhoun, Ward 6.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank Mr. Town Manager and staff. You see, this problem, we have to find a solution how to tackle this problem. You see, some certain streets they need a speed bump, as you mentioned today, Mr. Mayor. They need a speed bump because when there is a speed bump, people can take correction from injuring people. Then I have emphasized on this. Some of these drivers, they don't have driver's license. Some are drunk. Some did not respect the road signs. So we have to appeal to our police officers to help us to control some of these problems. You have a lot of children, those who don't have school bus. They come into school, not even Riverdale Elementary School. Many schools around, like William Well, Parkdale, Bladys Park, and all the rest. So, if we see we don't have enough police officers, let's install some speed bumps, some places. And these zebra crossings will be repainted so that the people can see it clearly, the drivers. Because many drivers, they use glasses. They have problem with driving. Number two, I would like our police to be around. And in fact, Mr. Mayor, most of these drivers, they don't respect handicap parking. Some people don't have handicap tag, they park in a handicap place. Those who have handicap tag, when they come, they don't have a space to park. Let the police take note of that too. Then I thank you for your suggestion that you brought up for this speed bump. And I thank you for the day that you visit this incident when it happened. And the town manager and staff, I thank all of them and some of my council members. I even call you. You said the incident happened in Ward 3. So my own take in this discussion, we have to strengthen the police, the town manager and staff. They are doing tremendous job, but they have to add more effort again. They're doing good. They're working hard. Yeah, town manager and staffs, they're working hard. I'm going a lot of places, I'm seeing their constructions and everything. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Town Manager mentioned about the street lights again. And I comment on that on 54th Place, Spring Lane. That corner is very dark. Let's try to do something better over there. And he mentioned camera in the apartment complex. That's another thing. So if I reach there, let me stop there. Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Kellon. I'll just remind you that we typically have at most 4 officers on staff at any on the street at any one time, and we have 24 miles of street. So that means that there's 1 officer per 6 miles. Deputy Chief Turner can probably correct me about the number that are actually out there versus how many cars there are, and perhaps it's even worse than that. But I think at best it's 1 every 6 miles. So they are doing a great job. They are asked to do a lot, and we need to keep that in mind. But thank you for your comments. That brings us to the end of council committee and ward reports. Next item is public comments. Are there any public comments? I don't see anyone. Mr. Hardig, go ahead.
Just a quick thank you to the various council members that, expressed their desire to, see bold changes into the future. And I certainly support that. And I'm sure many among us do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, council, it is 10:30 p.m. If there's no objection, I'm going to suggest that we skip the revenue update and skip the revised the reviews of the vision and commitment statements. Is that acceptable? Does anyone want to keep one or more of those items on the agenda for this evening?
I have no objection to that.
No objection.
None at all.
Okay, then let's go ahead and do that. That will take us to fiscal year 2025 budget development and preparation calendar. Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Deputy Director Jones is going to review the calendar with the mayor and council. Mr. Jones.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. The fiscal year 2025 budget development and preparation calendar has a number of different dates. Moving forward, the first date that we have is actually today, which is where we discussed the budget calendar and the upcoming dates. The next presentation would be on December 18th during the Mayor and Council work session. Staff will be covering budget assumptions, and that would conclude 2023. For 2024 in January, on the 8th, we have a Mayor and Council legislative meeting presentation where budget priorities, guidelines, challenges, and opportunities will be presented. On the 29th, we have fund balances and initial year-end projections. Moving forward in February 2024, on the 5th, Mayor and Council legislative meeting presentation, the capital improvement project updates and projections will be presented. February 26th, we'll have a Mayor and Council work session presentation where the constant yield notice will be presented, as well as revenue, particularly the 2024 estimated actuals and then the fiscal year 2025 projections. As we move to March on the 4th, Mayor and Council legislative presentation, we will be covering the expenditures, fiscal year 2024 estimated actuals, and fiscal year 2025 projections will be presented. On the 18th, we will have the State of the Town presentation, where staff will present a budget overview. And then on the 26th, we will have budget updates and adjustments. That is during the Mayor and Council work session. Moving forward in April, on the 1st, we will have a Mayor and Council work session presentation where a summary of the fiscal year 2025 proposed operating and capital improvement budget will be presented. On the 13th and the 20th, we will have budget public hearings, and we will review the proposed fiscal year 2025 operating and CIP budgets during those 2 dates, those being on Saturday. And then on the 29th, to conclude April, we have a Mayor and Council special legislative meeting and work session. There we will review edits of the proposed budget, and there will be an introduction of the fiscal year 2025 operating and CIP budget and tax rates ordinance. And then in May, on the 6th, we'll have the real property tax rate public hearing. And on the 20th, during the Mayor and Council special legislative meeting, we will have the final adoption of the fiscal year 2025 operating and CIP budget and tax rate ordinances. So yes, that concludes the schedule for the fiscal year 2025 budget development calendar. Again, some of the key dates that we'd like to highlight are the public hearing scheduled for Saturdays, April 13th and 20th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. And I want to add a few comments here. I think it's important to note that counting tonight, there's 15 opportunities for public comments on the budget at public meetings. In addition to that, we always accept input through our community input email or direct outreach to members of the council or the staff team. If people have questions or ideas or concerns about the budget. I will say that the budget assumption discussion in just a few weeks is going to be of particular interest, I believe. We've heard a lot this evening about a strong support for action, to think big, to change how things are done or have been done. And the town has kept the same tax rate for many, many years, well over a decade. I think it's now 14 years. The rate has remained the same. And in thinking big costs money. And so I look forward to a discussion with the mayor and council at that session to talk about the budget assumptions as it relates to the tax rate and any enhanced CIP programs to improve the built environment on a quicker scale in the face of having declining revenue net expenditures. And we've shared with the council before. It's in the budget book, it's in the message section. It shows where our revenue net expenditures had been increasing. And we use revenue net expenditures to fund our capital improvement. When we closed out fiscal 23, revenue net expenditures is down to about 1.2 for last year. And it's on a declining slope. So we anticipate that revenue net expenditures will be less as we close out fiscal 24. That's why we have a person focused on grants. We've been successful bringing in additional grant funds. But I do think that this year, depending on direction from the council on the CIP program and the quickness in getting things done, I do believe that a discussion of the tax rate will be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I will just add my comments that residents who are interested in seeing things happen and understanding how things happen should download a copy of the current budget and review it and understand where we spend our money and where the money comes from, and come into the budget assumption meeting knowing that and provide informed input on how we should go forward. So thank you. Are there council comments or questions for Deputy Director Jones or the town manager on the calendar, budget calendar? Are there public comments or questions? Thank you again, Deputy Director Jones, Town Manager Lustician. Appreciate the presentation and the information. Next item is the renewal of town grant programs.
Director Charlton, can you walk the mayor and council through this?
I'd be happy to. Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. No action is requested during tonight's work session, but staff are requesting that at the December 4th legislative meeting, Mayor and Council adopt 6 resolutions and 1 motion extending the Partners in Economic Recovery programs to the end of the next calendar year. The 7 programs include the Farmers Market Dollars program, the program that has assisted many households in town with the purchase of fresh fruit and vegetables by providing vouchers for use at the Riverdale Park Farmers Market, the Small Business Assistance Grant Program, which assists businesses with past due rent and utility payments, the Emergency Repair Grant Program, which assists both residents and businesses with emergency repairs, the Flood Prevention and Damage Mitigation Grant Program, which assists multifamily, commercial properties, and businesses with improvements aimed towards, which assists both residents and businesses making improvements to mitigate potential flood damage. The next grant program is the Neighborhood Safety Improvement Grant Program. This assists multifamily, commercial properties, and businesses with improvements aimed towards improving safety of those residing at and visiting the property. The Commercial Appearance Grant Program, previously known as the Business Improvement Grant. This assists businesses with improvements aimed at helping attract customers. And lastly, but not least, is the motion to authorize waiving of the residential permit fees for another calendar year. Each of these grant programs, both those designated for residents and those designated for businesses, have been successful in assisting both residents and businesses. The waived residential building permit fees have also benefited town residents. And just as a reminder, these waivers only apply to residents seeking building permits and not for commercial entities seeking building permits. The town staff suggests continuing the grant programs and the waiver of the residential permit fees for another calendar year. And if there are any questions regarding the grant programs, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director Chilton. Are there questions for Director Chilton from the council?
Yes, Mr. Director, this is Council Calon. I want to ask a question when he is saying that they have an assistant for, they have a rental assistant allowances. How people going to apply for that?
So the grant program that assisted with past due rent and utilities was the Small Business Assistance Grant Program. We briefly touched, I believe it was at the last meeting, we were discussing ARPA fund reallocation, that the county has a program that's able to currently assist residential folks. And we did not see a tremendous demand there for residents. And so we reallocated or suggested reallocating those funds for the Farmers Market Dollars program, which has seen a significant demand.
So you have to apply through the county?
For the residential rent relief, that is correct, yes.
Okay, that's my question anyway. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions for Director Chilton from the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Chilton, we just heard that from the town manager about the declining net revenues over expenditures and how that's dropping, and we're seeing more of a drop. And yes, while I did read in the briefs that were presented to us on these programs, how it's not that much of a revenue generator. for the town. Isn't this a case of where any little bit helps?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're asking specifically about the waiving of the building permit for the residential.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I did pull the numbers to try to get a rough estimate of what we would have, what we've waived, and it's I believe it's approximately $4,000 this last year, which I would defer to the finance experts on the team, but I don't I think that $4,000 is worth the cost of helping our residents in this way.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that's kind of my other part of my question was, what has it been to date in terms of what's been forfeited by the town by not collecting the permit fee?
Yes, it's approximately $4,000.
And that's been over the is that over the 3-year period?
That was this calendar year.
Well, that was this calendar year.
Yes. And
Okay.
it also helps to encourage investment for the residents and their properties as well. So I like to think that it's a waiver that we will see the benefits of by improvements in people's houses.
Okay. So then would it be your consideration or your suggestion to the council to consider just waiving the fees altogether going into the future?
For the residential applicants,
You don't have to answer now if you want to wait and give me an answer next week. That's fine. I don't want to throw you on the spot here, but
I'll be happy to step out there.
Okay.
Councilmember Lingua, I think for residential properties, so where the owner or the owner resident is making improvements, I think that is something the council should consider, because it's well, $4,000 is $4,000. I agree with Mr. Shelton that it encourages folks to one, tell us that they're doing the project, and two, to make investments in their property. This does not waive commercial permits, or if someone is a contractor is completely renovating a home or adding a new home. This waiver is for our primarily it's owner occupied folks. We have some rental properties as well, but it's folks that are fixing up their homes, and I think for $4,000 a year, it's something that the council should consider.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any additional council questions about this discussion item? Any public comments on this discussion item? Okay, thank you, Director Shelton. I appreciate the presentation, and I think we'll be ready to vote next week. It wasn't explicitly removed. The next item is minutes, and just a reminder that those are out there and you need to review them, and please let staff know if you find any issues that need to be corrected. Under unfinished business, update on Riverdale Park Community and Municipal Center project, 6601 Baltimore Avenue. I do not have an update. Is there anything from staff?
I do not have an update this week, sir. Perhaps next week we can talk about it.
Okay, I will be trying to reach out to Congressman's office this week, but it didn't happen last week. And that brings us to the item under new business, schedule for town manager performance review. Town manager's performance review comes from the council. It is due towards the end of January, January 21st. Is that right, Mr. Town Manager?
My anniversary date's the 19th, sir.
19th. I went the wrong direction for the 20th.
It's very close.
And so I will be sending out hopefully by next week, I'll be sending out the draft questionnaire council members can weigh in on process and questions you don't like, process you want to see changed, and please let me know. I will send out a final version in early January, and of course it's due back to me on the anniversary date or within a few days after the anniversary date. And I will be presenting a more formal calendar next week, but just be aware that that's the rough calendar. And then we'll have the presentation of the performance review report that I will, has traditionally been done by me. I may actually put that into the calendar this time and see if people are willing to accept it as such. And that's it. Are there any other items of new or unfinished business to discuss this evening? Seeing none, hearing none, we are done for the evening. Thank you all. We appreciate being here with you and having difficult but important discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Likewise.